You are listening to Additional Crew Film Review with Nick Meyer and Andrew Gomez. These spoiler-heavy reviews are meant for entertainment purposes only. Please do not attempt anything said on this show at home. Now sit back, relax, and listen to these two dinguses talk about a movie. Enjoy! Honey, just keep the coffee coming, or I'll give you a podcast you won't forget. Welcome to Additional Crew Film Review, the podcast bringing you movies that no one wants to watch anymore, but a few people really love. This week we're talking about a loan officer who evicts an old woman from her home, finds herself the recipient of a supernatural curse. Desperate, she turns to a seer to try and save her soul, while evil forces work to push her to a breaking point. I am, of course, talking about the film Drag Me to Hell. It's from 2009 by the esteemed director Sam Raimi, including a bunch of other people that we'll get into a little bit later here. But before I go to that, I should mention your host today. So we have myself, Nick, and with me, my lovely partner, Janice. What's up, Janice?
Hi, everyone.
And just like before we get started, it's worth noting. So we are raising two small children, and I think I found out that there are difficulties in having the person you're raising children with as your partner co-hosting a podcast. That is when you've had a particularly hard weekend, like both of our kids have been ill and not getting good sleep, and just like generally whiny. It gets really difficult to do anything. So bear with us. We are doing this podcast in the middle of a cold that's been going on. And so if we seem like a little bit spacey, a little bit spaced out, it's just like a lack of sleep. You know how it goes.
So much little sleep. Exactly. I can't say my words correctly.
That's the issue here. We're dealing with that level of little sleep. Like it's like, you get 3.5 hours and then you're woken up and then you get maybe another 3 hours if you're lucky. So bear with us. If we say some silly stuff, that's what's going on.
Arlo could have drug us to hell with his screaming 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's true. Luckily, he doesn't give me anything. He only takes stuff from me. They
would be good in horror movies, though, if somebody wanted to use their voices.
No, that's accurate. Especially when nothing's happening to them. That's when their screams are the best. So, before we get into this film, we usually talk about some things. I think this will probably be a pretty quick podcast because we've been dealing with all this other stuff. But there's some music we want to talk about. So, Janice, why don't you kick us off here? I hear you have a release you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess I'm on the pop kick right now because last time I talked a little bit about Miley Cyrus's new song. And today I am mentioning Benson Boone. Benson Boone is a new 22-year-old Zoomer musician musician, artist, singer, all that stuff. And a TikToker, apparently. He got famous from TikTok, and he's also now a famous artist. Anyway, and now I'm just repeating myself because I'm tired. But he came out with a new song called Mystical Magical, which I really like. And I think he premiered it at Coachella a few weeks ago. He's got this cool vibe about him. I listened to an album. I think it was his first album today. And it is a little bit poppy. But, there's some hidden gems in there. And I just really like this song. And honestly, I don't really know what it's about. It's kind of a love song. And he mentions Moonbeam ice cream. It's got this I don't even know how to describe it. How would you describe it? You heard it today. You're so good at describing music.
Moonbeam
ice cream. Do you remember that song?
I would call it like late 2000s, early 2010s, like piano pop, almost, but with
Okay.
like guitars and stuff going on around it. I that might be pretty specific, and I think if you hear it and you understand what I'm talking about, you'll know. If you don't, that's okay. Listen to the song, you will.
Okay. He just does this thing with his voice, and it was like in this song that really drew me in, where it's like it almost kind of reminds me of a horror movie, and I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's kind of like Moonbeam ice cream, la 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 la. And it just reminded me of like, I don't know, some creepy old lady or something. Maybe like the lady from Drag Me to Hell, but I don't
This is
know.
Ghanoush
It
singing.
it was this
Good.
like unhinged vibe and like cadence that he had to his voice of this particular song, and that drew me in, and I was like, oh, I should try to listen to Benson Boone because his music sounds kind of cool and creepy. But then I listened to the album, his first album, and it was just super poppy. So I don't know, I don't think his second album has come out yet. I think this is a song that's going to be on his second album, so maybe there will be a little bit more of that. But anyway, and Moonbeam Ice Cream, fun fact, is in production with Benson Boone and and Ben and Jerry's. So Ben
Mm.
and Jerry's is going to sell a ice cream in
So
partnership
so
with Benson Boone.
so Benson Boone will be the Ben in the that Ben and Jerry's combination.
Yeah, and I really like his style. Like, I think he gets a lot of inspiration from Queen, like his actual aesthetic. And another fun fact, he just played when he was playing at Coachella. He brought out the Queen's guitarist Brian, what's his name?
Brian May.
Brian May,
Mhm.
and not one Zoomer in the crowd seemed to know who he was, which is a little bit sad. I mean, I didn't know, I can't think of his full name off the top of my head, but I've seen, I know what he looks like. But
He's a
anyway,
very iconic guitarist. I want to bring up a not so fun fact about Coachella. So the group Kneecap, who we've covered their movie here in a podcast we released in December 2024, and we've talked about their album a little bit. Uh, they played Coachella, and they're having backlash because of a chant they started from Sharon Osbourne and, shockingly enough, David Draymond from Disturbed. David Draymond, it turns out, is a huge Israel supporter. I'm not going to get into like the politics of it all here because again, it's just not what I want to do. But I will say this: like, I hope that Kneecap's visas aren't revoked because I would love to see them on this tour. And just pay attention to that if you are hoping to see them because they've dropped their booking agents. It's not looking the best for the boys.
yeah, Kneecap is super cool. Oh, and you guys reviewed that movie before, right?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that was like my Janice watched it with me, so she did watch the film too. So
Hmm.
watch the movie if you want to know what these dudes are about. Just watch the movie, like regardless of whether or not you agree with what they've said. Watch the film if you're curious about why people would say these things.
Yeah. It sucks that they might get deported, but at the same time, that's something that they stand for, sticking up for other humans and things that aren't right. Um, so I think that they would be very proud to be deported if they were, but I
And
hope they're
then
not.
yeah, me too. It's all so complicated right now. I just think um, that's not a great way to show free speech, is to then remove visas from people. Um, but again, I'm not going to go further into that. I do want to talk about a new release that's coming up. That's actually a reworking of an old release because that's the age that I'm at now. So this film that we're going to talk about today, Drag Me to Hell, is from 2009, right? Well, an album from 2008 is getting completely reworked, and it's Avalon by Anthony Green. Now, Anthony Green is better known for Circus Survive, The Sound of Animals Fighting, currently Ellis Dunes, just a ton of side projects. He's one of the most unique vocalists that came out of the post-hardcore scene era in the mid 2000s. and he is redoing one of my favorite albums. I love his Avalon album. He's been in so many projects, and Avalon is the thing that I can tell you and I know all the words to, and I'm very excited that he's reworking them. He's been playing these songs live now for, he says, almost 20 years. So he's adopted like the versions that work best for crowd energy. And he
Cool.
brought on his old friends who helped him record the first one. They're the people from, I believe it's Good Old War or Driving While High. Again, so many projects. How do you know?
So that's just
Um,
pure nostalgia.
Pure nostalgia, but he's also re-recording it. It's going to be called So Long Avalon, and it comes out in June. I'm just excited for it because I love those songs and I love a reworking of them. It's such a good album.
Could be a
Um,
good tour to go to, possibly, hopefully.
mhm. Well, what's really cool about Anthony Green during these tours is he supports really strongly harm reduction and gives out things like test kits and Narcan and naloxone packs at all of his tours.
Oh,
And so he's, you know, he sticks up for people, which is awesome.
that's cool. I love that.
Yeah. Um, with that said, so we did watch a few movies, but we won't talk about them here because I think at some point we're going to have a John Carpenter medley. We've been hitting every single one of his films that are coming up at the art house. And as you've listened to our other podcasts, I love John Carpenter. John Carpenter is one of my like heroes of cinema. So we've been able to watch, I think, every one of his films except for Dark Star so far.
Hmm.
And
We would
we'll
have.
yeah, we would have. We just, it was the first week, and it's easy to forget things.
But we watched 6 now, 5 or 6.
I think it's 5. So it's Assault on Precinct 13, Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York, and The Thing.
Yeah.
And then
And
up
our
next,
one of
Christine.
our okay, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm excited about Christine. So yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, our local theater in town, one of our local theaters has been playing those movies every week, so we want to make it to the end. I think it'll be done in June.
And I figure I'm just gonna save it until we can talk about all of them at once because you don't need me waxing about John Carpenter on every single podcast. I could, but you don't need it. Um, and I think, are you ready to just jump into this movie? You want to just do this thing?
Yeah, let's do it. Take me
Okay.
back to hell. I'm just kidding.
So we are, of course, talking about the 2009 film "Drag Me to Hell" by Sam Raimi. It's about a lady who works for a bank. She's fighting very hard for a promotion. So she, against her better judgment, tells Mrs. Ghanoush, an old lady who's on some form of, I can't remember if she says disability or welfare or what she says,
Mm-hmm.
um, for her checks to make a mortgage payment. She asks for an extension on the loan. Um, Christine Brown, Alison Lohman's character in this film, is the main character, and she says no to try to get that promotion, and as such, she's cursed.
Yep.
Um, and that curse brings with it terrible tragedy. It's all from a little button, and she gets followed essentially by like this weird goat thing that is called a lamia. I might as well just go into the whole story at this point, I suppose. So she's followed by a lamia. She gets cursed by it from Mrs. Ghanoush. Um, Justin Long's character Clay is her significant other. He's planning on proposing to her at some point during this whole time period, but instead just stands by her. They go through a moment where he's introducing her to his family. I don't know that he's introducing her, but they're going to a dinner with her family. With his family, and then that doesn't go super great. Justin Long stands by her side. Um, she keeps trying to fight off and find different ways to get rid of this um, demon, devil, Lamia.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I should just call it a Lamia. That's his name. She finds different ways to get rid of the Lamia, including like a seance and then a method of like gifting something over to other people. And it just, ultimately it just doesn't work. And we're left with this film where she gets dragged to hell, much like the title of the film.
Yep.
Uh, lots of. I don't want to say actually a lot of big names in this film. There's not really. So Sam Raimi he's a well celebrated director. You of course know him for like Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness, Darkman films, Spider Man. He's done some of the newer Doctor Strange movies. Um,
Hmm.
and they just okayed a Drag Me to Hell 2 last year, so that's in production. Which I didn't know when I chose this film. That actually just turns out to be a little happy little coincidence. But Sam Raimi's all over the place. He has been around for a long time. He does a lot of things. He's well received in the community, and people kind of know what you're getting from Sam Raimi, especially in this mid 2000s, late, I guess this should be late aughts movie. And you get Justin Long before he blew up. Did Justin Long blow up? Is that a fair thing to say about Justin Long?
I think so. I mean, we were mentioning some of the other movies he's been in, like The Walrus, Barbarian, which came out a few years ago. Uh, he was in some other like rom coms. He was in something with Drew Barrymore, I think. It was like a baseball rom com or something. But yeah, I think the movies he's been in can, yeah, credit him to being a pretty successful actor. Because all those movies I think tend to be pretty successful.
Yeah, and like this before this film, he had only done Galaxy Quest, Jeepers Creepers. He was in Crossroads for what it's worth.
Oh yeah, Jeepers Creepers.
Uh,
Right.
he was in Dodgeball, which I would guess was probably his like real like await, like his real show up on the scene movie, and then Waiting, um,
Mm.
and then Idiocracy. So like he had been in a few things before this, but I feel like around this time is when he was really starting to hit a stride, and then he kind of just kept it going. And now Justin Long's kind of known as this guy who does horror movies, right? Which is a little shocking because, like you said, he did rom coms and stuff before this. Um,
Well, now that you're saying it, I think the first thing I ever saw him in was Jeepers Creepers. So I guess horror was my beginning with Justin Long,
yeah,
but I guess it wasn't that memorable because I didn't
uh,
remember it.
yeah. I mean, his role in Jeepers Creepers is I just remember him like running away from the truck, whatever they call the truck in Jeepers Creepers. And I'm not going to give Jeepers Creepers too much credit because of their director. He's a very weird, strange man who did a lot of really bad things.
Creeper.
100%. And if you're like, oh my gosh, that sucks, look into him. Not great, not great history there.
I
Victor Salva is his
watched.
name.
I had a sleepover for my 13th birthday party, and we watched Jeepers Creepers and Crossroads. So that's funny.
You're on the Justin Long marathon. You didn't even know it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Did
totally.
you watch Dodgeball after that too?
No,
I mean, I remember Dodgeball was wildly popular when it came out.
I think that came out a few years later, though, like 2005, maybe.
Yeah,
Because I turned.
2004.
Oh, okay. Because I turned. Oh, really? Okay.
Mhm.
I guess I turned 13 in 2003, late 2003.
That should be right.
Yeah.
Um, So going back to the story of this is like a reworked version of a 1957 film called Curse of the Demon, which I've never seen. I don't expect many people have seen it. But the story on this, on its head, feels like a classical horror story, right? So you have
Hmm.
Gypsy Woman places curse, and like who knows where exactly she's from. They're just refer to her as Gypsy Woman, Mrs. Ghanoush. She
Hmm.
places a curse on you, and then that curse basically means your soul's damned to hell. And they showed in a lot of different ways. I want to say, while the story is very simple, it takes a lot of interesting turns that I don't know that they all work for me. Like I think about sacrificing an animal and she kills her cat, right? And for just for complete sake, I don't know that we mentioned it. We watched the unrated version, not the theatrical cut, so we saw some different scenes. They were slightly different. It's like when the cat was killed in this scene, we saw it getting stabbed as opposed to just getting buried afterwards, and like implication.
Mm.
Um,
Did you so you verified that those were actually scenes that were cut?
there were a few, but some of them weren't. So I've okay. I'm gonna just be honest straight from the get. The CGI in this film I thought was just god awful. Just some of the worst CGI, and I think that like, well, I'll let Janice stand up for this point of view that like you can see it stylized, but for me it just didn't work at all. I thought it was just really really bad. Um, and so I went back to watch the theatrical version just to see if maybe like the CGI was added to the unrated cut, and the theatrical version was just better, and like maybe the CGI wasn't finished. But here's turns out that's not it. The CGI
Yeah.
was in both versions, so that was just the
Yeah.
Sam Raimi thing.
Yeah, it was. I think from what I read on the internets that he did do that on purpose for just the to kind of add to the campy vibe of the movie.
Hmm.
And I actually did appreciate the bad CGI because it was so obviously bad. It wasn't like trying to be good, bad, good. You know what I mean? Like trying to be
Hmm.
good, bad. It was like bad, bad. Like you're like, okay, that is clearly not real. But I kind of liked it because I always like things that look out of pocket and weird. So I appreciated it. And I appreciated that he purposely did that. But I feel like there could have been other elements in the movie that just brought out that sort of bad campy CGI a little bit more. You know what I mean? And then and like made it obvious that it wasn't or that it was intentional because it just felt like there were so many parts of the movie where it was trying to be intentional and like trying to be serious, and then you get that. I don't know. It was a wild ride, that's for sure. So I was definitely a little confused the whole time.
Yeah, and for it was just it's hard for me because I think that like Sam Raimi makes a lot of really strong decisions in his scenes. Like if nothing else, you can
Mm-hmm.
absolutely tell when a film is a Sam Raimi film. There's like
Mm-hmm.
no confusion about it, and this is one of those films that definitely feels like a Sam Raimi film. But for me, it's like the strong decisions are hampered by then this like goofy looking thing that happens. You know, like he's got these cool decisions that are being made, and then it just looks the landing is so goofy because the actual effect you're waiting for
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't hit. It's like a wet noodle getting you're getting slapped with a wet noodle, and that might not make sense to everybody, but it does make sense to me. Um, because I think about the scene where like Mrs. Ghanoush shows up, she sticks her arm in Christine's mouth, right, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a cool decision. Like that scene would be shocking, and it was still good, and it still got that Evil Dead like feeling to it when she gets the what are they called? They're the ice skating blades.
Oh, was
The
that in the parking garage?
no, it was in her shed when she was looking for stuff so she could sell to try to make the money.
Oh, right.
Um, she got the skating shoe with the blade on it. We'll figure it out
Okay.
some other time.
Ice
And
skate.
ice skate, thank you. It's the simplest words you could possibly think of. Again, I preface this audience. If you're worried about me forgetting words like ice skate, we're there, okay? So she
Dad brain.
chops the rope, and the anvil falls on Mrs. Ganoush's head. And it's got all these workings of like this should be a good scene, but then the CGI eyeballs pop out, and I'm just left wondering. I'm like, was I supposed to be laughing that whole entire time? Was I supposed to be worried? Because
Yeah.
I can get to like the framing of this film that I think would absolutely no. Okay, I'm gonna take this back. The framing of this film that I think could work is that it is just pure entertainment, right? think about it too hard. Just go into it, watch it, enjoy it. But my issue is that it's, and I'm going to break this down real fast here, and then we'll go into more details. But my issue here is that it's neither one, funny enough, or two, scary enough, and three, it doesn't feel like it picks a lane well enough
Yeah.
for me to be purely entertained by it. So it's got to do something, and I think it just kind of falters at both ends. And I really think that the bad CGI is
Hmm.
part of that, because the bad CGI looks so funny even in scenes that could be cool.
Right.
So you got this like shocking scene where her arm is all the way down the main character's throat. You know, she peered out of nowhere. She's gonna get hit by an anvil, which is, now that I say that out loud, very Looney Tunes ish.
Hmm.
But then
Yeah.
the eyeballs just pop out. It's like, what am I watching now? You know. Um,
Hmm.
I think I wrote it gave like some strong Who Framed Roger Rabbit vibes at certain times. It was like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but in the horror world.
Right. So for you, like, what do you think makes Evil Dead better? Because it did very much have Evil Dead vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Evil Dead is a super popular horror cult movie. I think for me, I don't know, maybe it was like the era that it took place. Like they kept it in 2009. I think that was kind of the time period that it was filmed and when it took place. So, and Evil Dead I know is in the 80s, so maybe that's what made it better, is like the combination of like the 80s vibes, 80s clothing, 80s aesthetic with this kind of over the top blood and like creatures, which all kind of added to the film. And then this one was very much, I feel like, trying to be like Evil Dead, but it took place in 2009, which is like not the most spectacular time period. I feel like the clothing's not, it's just there's a lot that's not there. So, and yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I really think that one of the largest differences, well, there's two main reasons that this didn't capture that Evil Dead essence for me. One is that Bruce Campbell is very singularly capable of producing this
Hmm.
sort of vibe well. And there's not a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
actors who can do this. That's why Bruce Campbell is so famous, is because he is able to
Yeah.
hit that campy spot while maintaining like this level of like stupid badass that almost no one else can do. And like, no, this isn't even an
Yeah.
offense to Allison Lohman. She just can't do it. Most people can't do the Bruce Campbell thing. Again, that's why
Yeah.
he's out there doing that thing on his own, right? It's because he's got that air. He's got that aura to him. Um,
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the casting made a huge
mhm.
difference. And if they had more over the top actors, I feel like it would have made it funnier.
Well, because
And
lean into that comedy, right? Lean into the comedy a
yeah,
little bit. Like the actors felt like they were leaning out of the comedy. They wanted it to be more scary, but um, the other thing, I can't overstate this. It's what my whole first starting argument here is going to be, is that the practical effects in Evil Dead 2, because it was
mm,
made in the 80s and it was using technology around in the 80s, which means it was pretty much all practical effects, stand up so much better to this film. Everything looks so much more gruesome, wild, just more interesting. I don't know. This, like, the CGI in this film is comparable to like the CGI in Scooby Doo movie.
that's so bad.
And
The
yeah, and
one
that,
with the one with Freddie Prinze and Matthew Lillard.
yeah, mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
We watch a lot of Scooby Doo, by the way.
Yeah, again, two kids, and I like that. I like the Scooby Doo movie, but it's for children, right? And it leaned into the funniness. It wasn't trying to be scary. Like at no point was it scary. Um,
Yeah.
and the CGI just doesn't work for a serious movie to me in any way, shape, or form. And like, it doesn't really feel like that's what they're going for. But they just didn't lean into the comedy enough, if that's what they wanted. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to get that out in the air first off, is I feel like there was a lot of missed opportunities here. And
Yeah, I
maybe
agree.
missed opportunities isn't like the right word to use. It's more so just A missed the whole film was a missed opportunity. Does that mean?
It's a little mean, but
I'm sure Sam
uh,
Raimi is okay with that. He's fine.
yeah, and it's
They're getting a
interesting.
sequel.
I know, and it's interesting because from what I was reading, it, I don't know what to think about it, but apparently Sam Raimi did as much as he could to not use CGI, except for in those moments, right? Which I think you could kind of see. But, well, I don't know. It's still confusing to me because even like the parts where there's throw up dripping down the lady's face, like that's clearly like CGI throw up, or like CGI water on somebody's face while they're showering. Like that all looked like CGI, right? Am I crazy? So there
Not
were
at all. No.
parts I was reading where it was like different facts about the movie where they're saying that he didn't use that much CGI, or he didn't want to use that much CGI. He tried as much as he could to not use it, but it's very apparent that he kind of enjoyed using CGI, to me anyway.
I mean, we can look at the
Um,
scene where she's Alison Lohman, Christine Brown is pouring blood out of her nose and out of her mouth, right? Like that was an actual funny scene, but it's not like
oh yeah.
directors hadn't figured out how to not use CGI for blood coming out of your mouth or your nose, right? That was clearly CGI. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
even good CGI, and it was a funny scene. That's one of the better uses of CGI. But come on, Sam. Like you could, if you don't want to use CGI, you can make blood come out of someone's mouth without CGI. It's not even a difficult thing.
Yeah. It's just interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like he was trying to be super campy with the technology that was available at the time, but it didn't quite work. And I think most of that is just because of the casting.
Yeah, and
That's what I think.
that could absolutely be right. Um, I going back to the. I'm gonna go back to the story. And I'm gonna try to figure out what
Okay.
to. So Mrs. Ghanoush as a character is a pretty strong stereotype of this like this old gypsy woman who curses people for no reason. You see this a few times. 2009, I think, is the first article I could find about whether or not it's okay to use gypsy women in this way, whether or not it's okay to even call them gypsies. So just to
I
give like era relevance.
I found out that she was Hungarian.
Okay, okay. Which that makes sense. And they did a great job of making her seem immediately nasty. Regardless, like the nasty fingernails, her like
Hmm.
blowing her nose at the desk and coughing up a storm, her messed up eye. Her character design was very off-putting in a good way. Um, I have one main issue with this whole setup, and that is that Mrs. Ghanoush should not have placed the curse on Christine Brown. Mrs. Ghanoush should have placed the curse on Mr. Jax. And I would have
Hmm.
felt so much more strongly that Mrs. Ghanoush would be the good guy in
Oh,
this movie.
yeah. I didn't even think about that. Mr. Jax was the jerk boss, right?
He was the jerk boss who was like, "Hey, you do what you know. I'm just saying, you got to get this promotion, and Rob over there is doing really good because he's making hard decisions, and you're not making hard decisions. But I won't tell you what to do. And anyone who's worked at a job where they're not the manager has felt this in some way, where they're like, "Hey, make a decision that's in a bad interest for someone, even though it doesn't really move a needle for us either which way."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if and this might not have been the message Sam wanted to send, but if you wanted to make this movie more interesting, I think immediately you could have made Mr. Jax the one who got the curse, or made Christine the boss. I don't care, whichever one you want. And then instead of like innocent-ish lady who's stuck in a bad situation and makes a bad gut call, you have someone who legitimately deserves to be cursed trying to fight this curse. And then all
Yeah.
of the twists that happen throughout this movie get so much better because you're like, hell yeah, he didn't get
Oh,
rid of the
yeah.
button. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we thought he gave it away, but turns out he didn't. Sucks for him, bro. Gotcha. Um,
Oh, yeah. That would have made it so much better because I felt like the whole time I'm like, why is she being cursed? Like, you know what I mean? Like what? Because My thought was that the person who was cursed, it was because they did something bad, right? That was kind of
Mm,
clear and obvious at the beginning of the movie with the I think it was Mexican family who their son was cursed for stealing a necklace um back in the 1960s. That's what I read where when it took place. So that's kind of the opening of the film, and then we get into this story with Christine, and then Christine ends up being cursed, but you're not really sure why. I don't know. Do you remember an actual
yeah.
point where?
So yeah, Christine was cursed because she brought shame to Mrs. Ghanoush, and she brought
Oh,
shame to Mrs.
right.
Ghanoush by having her. This is the complicated part because she didn't really bring shame to Mrs. Ghanoush. Mrs. Ghanoush kind of just brought shame to herself. You know, she got down on her knees and begged for it, and was still told no. And then she said, "I begged, and you still didn't listen.
Yeah.
So you brought shame to me," and that's um, that's not great. And I sympathize very much with Mrs. Ganoush's position, right? Like I wish she could keep her house, but also I'm like, this is misdirected anger at best. Attack Mr. Jax. But
And it was like the second or third time that Mrs. Ghanoush was asking for a loan.
yeah.
So Christine's character um, had to make that decision to say, no, you can't have another loan. And then that's when everything kind of
Mm-hmm.
boiled up.
Mm-hmm. Because then they have the
Yeah.
meeting in the garage where I can't see Mrs. Ganoush having tried anything other than killing her, and then she fought back, beat her up.
There
Um,
was just, yeah, now that you're saying that about that storyline and what you think would be, yeah, how you think that would be a better move to make Mr. Jax, is that what you said? I always
mhm.
forget, I'm so bad at names. But yeah, Mr. Jax, if he was like the main character, the one who was cursed, that would have made so much more sense. And it would have been so much more of a compelling film because yeah, I just felt like there was no strength or power in the story. Like I was
Yeah,
confused right off the bat.
and for me, it's even thinking about it, like it doesn't really even need to be Mr. Jax. Just make Christine the boss. You know, like she's the boss
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning. She's the manager who says no. You do that, and all of a sudden it's all great. I mean, you'd have to remove the subplot of Stu gunning for the manager position, also. But like, how much did that subplot matter? She wanted to give him the button, then couldn't, and he started crying, and that's like the.
That was so confusing to me because he was clearly such a jerk, like
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
throughout the movie, and then suddenly there's that scene where he's yeah crying, and you're just like, why do I feel empathy or compassion? Why am I supposed to feel empathy or compassion towards you when you've been a jerk the whole time?
I I feel like that scene was set up to show that Christine was kind of naive in a lot of ways still, because she didn't end up cursing Stu because she believed Stu was going to end up doing the right thing and that he had some sort of like sorrow or regret for lying and making her lose the big account. I can't remember the name of the account. But then in the next scene, Mr. Jax is calling Christine, and he says that Stu blamed Christine on losing the big account again after they had the
Yeah,
meeting at the diner. So it was like Stu was a bad guy the whole way through. The only thing I can think is that they made that point to show that it was about Christine being naive as opposed to like. But
yeah,
again, it doesn't move the needle one way or the other on whether or not I care about the subplot.
yeah. And I was kind of hoping in like the whole work situation she was having with Stu and with Mr. Jack, like um that there was sort of like a deeper message there, but I never really got to that point, where it's like this young woman is working for this boss. She's trying to like get a promotion, and of course, there's this other man who's her competition who just got hired, and for some reason, he's just better than her right
Oh, he's
away, even
giving.
though she's been there for like a few years or something, right?
Has she ever
So
given her boss Lakers tickets? I mean, you know.
right. And I was trying to figure out like if there was a hidden message there, but they never went like too far into that. But I was kind of hoping there would be something there, like,
Hmm.
I don't know, like she ended up cursing one of them. That was one of my hopes. Or that, yeah, there was just a reason behind somebody being cursed that would ultimately have a message at the end about female empowerment in the workplace or something. Something that made sense.
Yeah, and it's. I mean that would have been helpful. I do want to give them. I've talked about this in past podcasts, so I want to give Sam some credit. And the thing with Sam Raimi is I actually really enjoy how strong of a decision maker he is in directing. Like he doesn't seem to play it very safe with the decisions he makes. Um, and one of the things that I enjoyed about this film is that it actually had a sad ending, a bad ending for the main character.
Mm.
Like almost every other movie you can see, like I let's say 95% of them, that's the stat I made up right now, have good endings for characters, even if there's no reason it should be a good ending for a character, right? Like you could have the happy
Mm-hmm.
music playing while they leave the house and every one of their friends is all dead, but it's happy music, so it's okay, don't worry. Oh, and this movie ended with Christine being dragged to hell instead after faking you out on a happy ending. And I'll always appreciate that, even if it didn't, you know, change a whole bunch.
Yeah, I liked that they kind of um, they had a little bit of a twist in the ending, like you weren't expecting. And you're so good at guessing twists, and you didn't even really realize it until
It
a
was the
few minutes.
conversation with when she's talking to Clay on the thing, and he's like, and she's showing off her coat, and he goes, "What happened to your old coat?" As soon as he said, "What up happened to your old coat?" That's when it clicked. But that's really good because, like,
Can
who
we
would
give away
ever?
twists, or do we just like?
No, yeah. The intro song says we're spoiler heavy.
Oh, okay.
I the give away the twist is fine. They've seen the movie, I assume. That's right, audience. We assume you've seen the movie. Please watch the
So
movie.
the twist is that she dies, and well, yeah, she falls into the train tracks. Right?
She falls in
Okay,
the train
so
tracks, but she's not hit by the
okay,
train. She's
Bef-
dragged.
right before she gets dragged into the train tracks, Justin Long's character pulls out this button in an envelope, which is the button that you hand to people to give them the curse. So throughout this whole movie, um, or most of the movie, there's just this thing with this cursed button, and she figures out in the movie that she has to give this button to somebody if she wants them to be cursed, or if she wants to give the curse away, basically, so it can stop torturing her. So I forget, like, is it the button's kind of forgotten about, right, in the car or whatever.
She grabs
And
the wrong
then,
envelope. She grabs the envelope with the coin instead.
oh right, okay. And then at the end of the movie, uh they're at the train station, and Justin Long's like, "Oh, I found something. I have something in my pocket for you." He's like trying to be all cool and nice, and he's like, "Oh, that button from your jacket." And she's like, "Oh shit, I got rid of that jacket. Like, don't give me that button."
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and it was she was that was the day and the moment it was gonna happen, and then she finds out that the button comes back to her. Um,
so I liked that twist. Yeah, I thought it was one of the more interesting parts of the movie. Um,
well,
and apparently nobody on set knew what the twist was. Like, they kept it a very good secret. Sam Raimi didn't want any other actors to know what the twist was until they were actually like in the theater watching the movie during the film premiere. So it was just Justin Long, and then I keep forgetting her real name, but
Allison
Christine,
Loman.
Allison Lohman, and Sam Raimi, and maybe like one other person or two other people who knew what the twist was. So that was kind of a fun little fact.
For sure. And I liked that twist especially after how dramatic the scene of her shoving the what she thought was the button into Mrs. Ghanoush's mouth in the pouring rain in the grave.
Oh yeah.
Right, because it was such a dramatic scene. She gets in the grave,
Yeah.
she digs it up. It's pouring rain. It fills up with muddy water, and the like corpse of Mrs. Ghanoush is still grabbing at her and pulling her hair. Um,
That was one of my favorite scenes, actually, just
yeah, I
because of
mean,
the visuals, and you could kind of imagine yourself being in this wet grave while it's raining.
I thought if any scene there's a few scenes that really did work for me, and that was one, right? Because the aesthetic on that scene was captured very well.
Hmm.
It was very gothic horror feeling, and then like the water filling up the grave is so dramatic. It doesn't make any sense. I don't care how hard it's raining. The water doesn't fill the grave, but it is appropriate in this scene because she's still getting dragged under by this corpse as the grave is filling with water. And that's right after she goes, shoves the what she thinks is the button in Mrs. Ghanoush's mouth, and she's like, "Choke on it, bitch!" And then
Hmm.
the corpse attacks her afterwards because of buoyancy or gravity or water physics, something goofy like that. And then you still have this twist at the end where it turns out she just shoved a coin into Mrs. Ghanoush's mouth. She ends up dying still because the button didn't even go into her mouth. So you have this
Yeah.
hugely dramatic thing, and it didn't even matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Apparently that scene took like 2 weeks to film, and
sure.
Alison Lohman said that was one of her least favorite scenes to film because it was like every single day for 14 days she was in this wet grave, basically.
Yeah, gross.
Um,
With a fake corpse, that's got to be fun.
yeah, apparently, from what I read, the movie was very physically, it took a lot of physical effort, and it was a very physically draining movie to film.
And it's nuts because Alison Lohman did all of her own stunts. She didn't have a
Hmm.
stunt double, like a lot of people would have stunt doubles for this. She did not, so she was doing the whole thing.
Yeah, and Sam Raimi, he apparently wanted things to be as real as possible. I don't know if you know that about him, but she said, like, in the scenes, Alison Lohman said that in the scenes with the uh, old lady, Mrs. Ghanoush,
Mm-hmm.
like when Miss Ghanoush was choking her, she was like actually choking her because Sam Raimi wanted her to actually choke her. So those were interesting facts to learn.
And that's what I'm talking about with the tone thing, Sam. You want it to be so realistic, but then you add that garbage CGI on top of it. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so close.
Yeah, it's
Either go
I
full
feel like
William
yeah.
Friedkin or don't, like. But it's hard for me. Um,
But
yeah.
yeah,
So
she did do all of her own stunts, which was cool. And there were some things that she did not do because Sam Raimi didn't allow her to do it. But speaking, just going back to the rain and the muddy scene, another thing I was reading about this movie is Alison Lohman was kind of told that her character was similar to Rain. So I saw a lot of interviews like that and read some things where people were comparing her character to Rain. And I don't know if I should have even brought that up, but I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to mention. I didn't really look into why exactly that would be, but I don't know. Do you see why her character would be compared to Rain?
I could make up something right now,
Like
but
the
no.
physical, you should make something up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's like Rain because her opinions are amorphous depending on who she heard from. So it's like when rain falls down, it just lands around where you are instead of going through you because you're physical. Okay, see, this is terrible. I can't.
Yeah, there was like a scene, I think it was of Sam Raimi, literally talking about her character as a reflection of rain, how rain changes all the time and you never know like what kind of rain you're going to get. Some days it's like, which I actually kind of, now that I'm like saying it out loud, I'm kind of seeing that because her character was kind of confusing in that movie and I didn't really feel like I got to know who she was as a person.
Mm-mm.
So they're like, yeah, the rain can change. You know, some days it's just sparkling and sprinkling, and some days it's like really hard hail, or some days it's like thunderous. And I definitely, yeah, that makes more sense to me now. But anyway, to make this movie even more weird and abstract, yeah, there are comparisons of her character to Rain.
That's what they call him, Sam Raimi. Get it?
Oh,
No, they don't
Rainy.
call him that. Um,
I know.
I
I
call him
was
that
like,
now.
it's Raimi.
Um, so I had something good around this, and it's gone. Oh, you know what? No, her character did change a lot, and I would say you can see that in any of the scenes as you get further on, as she gets more desperate. Might be the right word. Anxious, maybe, uh, because
Mm-hmm.
she's once. I think she is attempting to come off very nice, but she changes incredibly quickly. So let's say when she goes to her spiritual advisor's house, Ram Joss. I believe
Mm-hmm.
that's his name. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember her saying it out loud. That's just what IMDb tells me. Um, when she goes to her spiritual advisor's place, and she's like, "Well, hey, I really need to get rid of this thing. What do I do?" And he's like, "Well, you just sacrifice a small animal." And she goes, "I'm vegetarian. I couldn't do that." And in the next scene, the next morning, she kills her cat. You know, like little kitty kitty gets just demolished.
Yep.
It
Poor
did.
little kitty.
Poor little kitty. It was really sad. It did lead to the funniest line in the film, weirdly enough. When she's at the dinner with Clay's parents and they're
Yeah.
talking about the cat, and she's like, "Well, I did have a cat," or something of that sort. And Clay goes, "What do you mean did? We still do." And she says, "Well, how am I supposed to know?"
That was so random.
Um,
Yeah, that was like the first time I laughed in that movie.
it's just such a goofy answer to something that has no reason to be bad. Whenever, let me tell you, listeners, if anyone asks you a question that you definitely should know, or at least be able to infer, and you say, "Well, how am I supposed to know?"
Yeah.
That means you definitely know, and it is not the answer anyone else wants to hear.
That'd be like, well, like if me and you were talking and I'm like, well, we did have kids.
Yeah,
And you're like, did.
yeah, it's my, you know, and like our little children will do that all the time. You know, not all the time, but sometimes they'll come up and they'll be like, "Hey, uh, this thing's missing," and you'd be like, "Where is it?" And they're like, "I don't know." I'm like, well, "How do you know it's missing?"
Yeah. How am I supposed to know?
Yeah.
Like, or they say something's broken, like the TV's broken or something.
Hmm.
And it's like, what? The TV's broken? Uh, yeah. I don't know. How am I supposed to know?
Um, Speaking of the dinner with the parents, this is part of the story that I just kind of wanted to hit on. Is like I think that they had these moments where they were trying to show Christine like losing it a little bit by a little bit by a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but also these scenes just felt like ways to work up to elaborate props or cool ideas. Like the dinner scene was leading up to the eyeball cake, which was admittedly a very cool thing, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know that the scene needed to be as long as it was. Um, I also think back to like the seance and that whole scene and how I think it might have been
Yeah.
made just so that way you could have a goat that talks.
Yeah, that scene was literally so long that we were like trying to figure out where we'd seen that same house before. Like I was like, what movie was that we
Hmm.
saw that
Hmm.
house?
And if
Was
someone
it Haunted
knows, like message
Mansion?
us because that house is so familiar.
Yeah. But we had too much time to like think about that, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? So yeah, I agree. I was like definitely spacing off a few times.
And I think that's something that probably needs to be discussed in this film. Is just that it didn't have a particularly long runtime. It was an hour and 39 minutes. I think a little bit more for the unrated version. Not significantly more though. Um, And there were still scenes that just felt like either they didn't really matter in the context of everything that was happening. Like they may have given some character context and character building, but it wasn't that strong. I'll go back to the dinner scene because we were talking about it. The dinner scene, like the only real reasons I can see for it is one, you see Christine's breaking down, and two, it shows you that Justin Long has all the reason in the world to leave her, but then
Mm-hmm.
does not. And that only matters because that twist at the end gets a lot sadder when you realize that, like, not only did she get dragged to hell, but he also had this whole thing planned out, and like he lost her at that moment. You know, Wonder Woman
Mm-hmm.
Drag Me to Hell 2 will be about uh Drag Me to
Yeah,
Hell.
I mean, throughout the movie for me, like I did not feel like the I really got to know the characters that well. I don't know if you feel the same way, but like I don't know, it things just didn't get super deep with Justin Long. Um so I don't it was kind of not super believable to me that they were even really a couple, I guess. Um
They didn't have great chemistry. They
it
didn't
just
have like
yeah, that might be it. I think that might be it. It might be the chemistry. Because in interviews I was watching with Justin Long, you know, he was talking a lot about like how hard they worked to convince the audience that him and uh, him and Christine were supposed to be together. He's like, really, that was just my role. He's like, my role in this film was to hopefully convince the audience that I loved this woman and I was just kind of like her supportive partner. Um, but he's like, it wasn't much beyond that. But then when I'm listening to this interview, I'm like, I honestly didn't, it wasn't convincing to me that you like were with her. And I think
mhm.
it probably is the chemistry because there were just so many parts where he was just like kind of awkward and quiet towards his own girlfriend. And I'm just like, who is this rando guy like it hanging out with you? I don't know if you felt that way, but
They were just both very wooden when it came to actually like loving and everything. Like the setup had Clay, Justin Long's character, very much like dedicated to Christine. He
mm-hmm.
stayed through her, even though the parents were like, "Hey, you got to leave. You got to go. It's not right. You got to go." And he stayed with her, but you didn't feel that love when they're actually talking to each other.
Yeah,
When they're actually
it
talking to each other, they're just like talking to wooden boards to each other. You know.
yeah. So apparently, Elliot Page, who was then Ellen Page, was supposed to play Allison Lohman's character, and she was already cast, and and they decided they couldn't do that role because they needed to work on another film or TV show. And I wonder what Elliot Page would have been like with Justin Long. Their chemistry. Like it's hard for me to picture, but I wonder if their chemistry would have been better.
I mean, I could see a world in which the movie was a little bit more goofy with Ellen Page in it, Elliot Page.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know. It's
Yeah, it
hard
was
to
hard.
say.
It was hard for me to picture, but yeah. Anyway, I think the chemistry was just off.
Yeah, and it did hurt the movie because that was such a big part of the twist is that they ended up like working together so well because I think like Clay paying the $10,000 for the seance was
Mm,
important because we had seen her trying to figure out how to make it happen and Clay just paid it, right? And
right.
that was when you know like, oh, Clay's really in this regardless of what he thinks, he's in this. And it just didn't feel like it at any point.
Mm-hmm.
Um so let's talk about the acting for a second. Because I don't think this is a hard one to get through. So the acting in this film, I did not feel it was very good. There were moments where it was pretty good, but uh,
Mm-hmm.
we just talked about the chemistry between Alison Lohman and Justin Long in this film. Christine and Clay, not very strong. Christine did have moments where I think she acted well, but it wasn't it wasn't enough for me to call it spectacular. Mrs. Ghanoush was the best. Is just like this crazy evil old woman.
Yeah.
She didn't have like the hardest assignment. She was just be very physically disturbing. First off, disgusting, and then second off, scary. Did great. The one character that annoyed me the most when he was on the screen was Ram Joss.
Yeah.
And that was only because of how one note everything he said was. He only had one emotion and he only had one tone, and everything was in that tone, in that emotion. And just
Yeah. He had an arrogant flair about him. Like
mm-hmm,
from the second we first met him, I was like, oh, this guy already annoys me.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. 100%. And it just never really like dropped off for me. So the acting in this film didn't impress me. Um, it did kind of the opposite of
Yeah.
impress me. It was worse than it was good, you know. And again, you didn't have like that charisma that someone like Bruce Campbell would have, and I think you would want that. That's where I think someone like Ellen Page at the time would have maybe brought a lot of charisma to it. Maybe it would have been goofy, but maybe there would have been a lot of charisma in there, and it could have
Yeah.
helped.
I honestly felt like I'm trying to think. The actors I liked the most were Clay's parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I actually liked them. They had good chemistry, and they were just, I don't know, kind of interesting to listen to when they were talking during that dinner table scene. And I kind of liked the dynamic with the coworker
Stu, yeah.
Stu, and sorry, my brain is losing it right now.
Oh, sorry, and Mr. Jack.
Stu and Stu and Christine.
Yeah, okay.
I kind of liked their dynamic and their, yeah, just, I mean, they were against each other. Obviously, they didn't like each other, but they were interesting to watch together. I think they
Mm-hmm.
had good chemistry as like two people who disliked each other. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think the side actors like Stu, the guy who played Mr. Jax, they were believable enough, and I think that's an issue is that the longer you were with a character, the less believable they became, or even just they became more unlikable throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And having a movie like this, it's hard to have a bunch of characters that are unlikable. We've already talked some about this, but I think we should just go like officially talk about some cinematography and creativity, because I think
Okay.
this is one of the things where Sam Raimi himself is very well versed. Is that Sam Raimi's got a definite style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he makes really strong decisions, as I've been saying throughout. And I want to point that out in a good way. So like there are a few scenes that I thought were really cool. The hand in the very first scene where it is the Mexican family going to the I don't know what to call her, the medium's house, and the shadow from his hand as he's getting dragged to hell extends, and
Mm-hmm.
it keeps extending all the way up. That's a cool idea. I don't think it was like done particularly well because the CGI was an issue, but it was a cool idea, you know. The
Mm-hmm.
cake with the eyeball in it, again, another cool idea. How disgusting Mrs. Ghanoush was, really cool idea.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course the camera was a character in this film just as much as it is in any Sam Raimi horror film where he's doing this. Like you even have the fly landed on the camera lens at some point and caused a focus problem. And the fly is CGI, so that's not a mistake, you know. Like it's clearly a fake fly.
Yeah. Those are all good. One of my favorite scenes was I forget. Okay, so it was this in my notes. It says awful blood CGI squirt out of mouth, and
Yeah,
then was that coming? Whose mouth was that coming out of
that's
again?
coming out of Christine's mouth.
Okay, so out of Christine's mouth, and then somebody said, "Stop it!"
That was-
So who was it? It was she was squirting her
she was
the
squirting her blood, and she was at work, and then it ended up getting on Mr. Jax, and Mr. Jax was like, stop it.
yeah, I loved that over the top scene
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, she's like clearly can't help it and she's just like her blood is squirting out all over him. She's like throwing up blood or whatever, but it's like profusely and he's just like stop it as if she can like stop, but it was just
Mm-hmm.
like the timing of that scene and the way that he said it that made it hilarious. So I would have liked to see more of that because there were some good scenes and lines in there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but they just didn't have enough of it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this is to segue a little bit off of, from that. Another time where they used CGI liquid that was, I think, particularly well done is when Christine goes to the funeral, Mrs. Ghanoush's funeral, and she doesn't know she shows up, but she goes down there and she ends up landing on the body, breaking the casket. Mrs. Ghanoush rolls over on her,
Yeah,
and then like the embalming fluid pours out of her mouth and into
yeah.
Christine's mouth. That was funny. That was the right level of over the top funny, regardless of the CGI. Also, um, just like the most disgusting idea, and then also the gumming of the gumming when Mrs. Ghanoush loses her teeth and she ends up gumming Christine twice. So once when she's
Mm-hmm.
live in the car, and then the second time when she's dead as a corpse. Both times I'm like, why does that feel so much worse than her biting Christine? Is her gumming
Oh
Christine?
yeah, that was gross. That added so much to her
Mm-hmm.
character too, like her having those fake teeth, especially at the beginning when she takes her teeth out. When she's in that office trying to get the loan, and then Christine steps away, and she's just like takes her teeth out. I'm like, oh, this lady is nasty.
Yeah, she's gross.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, I think they could have played on that a little bit more.
yeah, and they had good moments like this. Like he is super creative. Like the cell phone jump scare. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
silly, but it was really kind of cool at the same point. Like that, this is where we need to go, Sam. Like let's do this stuff. When she pulls out her cell
yeah,
phone, and then all of a sudden Mrs. Ghanoush is on it.
yeah. Yeah, it was like a creepy YouTube video from the early 2000s. Yeah, it was
Hmm.
definitely a good jump scare.
Um, One thing I have an issue with in most films that do this is that I don't like it when they show me like half-second clips of the monster and then also make the monster invisible. It just doesn't work for me. So, like in
Mm.
this one, the Lamia was a spirit pretty much invisible except for shadows, which just meant it like this had more wind scares than the happening almost in the beginning. Whenever she'd open a door, wind would go and blow around some of the stuff around her.
Mm.
But then you'd also get these like half-second like screenshots of a demon face, and it's like choose one or the other. Pick your lane, Sam. You
Mm.
can't both show it to me and then not show it to me to create tension. And I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And then the whole seance scene, which someone
Hmm.
realistically someone should get into it, but I don't know how much we need to. It just was so goofy. It felt like a Disney movie.
Yeah. Haunted
Uh,
Mansion.
yeah, it's just like it was too bright. It was too adventurous. It was too something, but it felt off. The tone was bad, and it went on for a
Yeah.
long while. It was like, holy cow, what is happening here? And that's before we had the possessed goat.
Yeah, there it was definitely lacking cohesion
Hmm.
in the actors, in the aesthetic. But going back to demons and Lamia, I have another fun fact. Apparently, Lamia is a common demon name across different cultures, and that's why Raimi decided to use that name. He said that was the only thing that they researched for like the entire movie, and yeah, they just decided to land on that name. So that's kind of a fun fact.
Which that tracks. It's a lamb, and like it's very Satan, right? Like lamb hoofs and everything. So
Oh yeah,
ultimately, I look at this film as like there's good moments, but overall a little bit lacking. Um, that seance scene, they needed to change that scene very desperately. It just didn't work for me almost on any level. Um,
Yeah.
the seance scene might have been where I like officially kind of like checked into this, like, oh, this movie ain't gonna hit the highs that I hope it will, because then you had the grave scene that happened later. That scene was good, but it was too late to redeem the whole film for me.
Yeah, and I think, so you said that this movie got good reviews, right? Across the board?
I don't know about critics because I don't look at
Okay.
critics. Maybe the critics are more harsh on it, but like if you look at IMDb, it's at a 6.6 out of 10. Um, People really
Okay.
compare it to the old Evil Dead films. They say like he's finally back, he's done it again. Um, and I just couldn't feel this more wrong. I really like Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2. They're fantastic films, and this just didn't hit for me.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is probably the dedicated fan base, giving it good reviews. And I think there's a lot of throwback to the Evil Dead movie too, which people appreciate. Like that yellow car in the parking garage apparently is the car from Evil Dead.
Mhm.
I think it was Bruce Campbell's car, maybe. I can't remember. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of little tidbits in there that keep those like hardcore fans coming back and like loving it. Um, so maybe that's why it got such good reviews.
And it did have strong decisions, which I have a hard time just like completely hating on. So speaking of the editing and pacing, I don't feel like there was a ton you could cut, but I do feel like there was enough you could have cut to bring this down to like 130 flat. Um, that seance scene should have been just really short if that's what it was going to be. The dinner scene didn't need to be as long as it was. I don't know. I guess there's just a fundamental disagreement I have in like the likability of characters that I don't need so much background on them. Um, Whereas if I'd liked the characters a lot, the background would be wonderful.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. I like a lot of background on characters.
mhm.
I don't know why. I like to get to know them. Want to know what they eat for breakfast.
No, and I think that's a 100%, like it's something that you should want to do. Just I didn't like these characters enough.
Yeah, and I mean even like her like going back to Justin Long. I keep forgetting his character name, but like with his parents, I was kind of expecting, I don't know, like you walk into his parents' house, they're clearly like very rich people. They have this super nice house. And I think you're just kind of expecting things to go a certain way with the parents. I mean, it did, right? Like the parents clearly did not like uh, Christine, but it wasn't until like the end. Like they were actually really friendly and nice towards her. I was like, oh, these parents are actually kind of cool. But then it was when she started having like hallucinations or whatever they were,
Hmm.
that the parents were like, oh God, get her out of my house. Like she's not right for you. You know what I mean? Which I
Hmm.
think any parent would kind of do if somebody started acting like that at the dinner table. Maybe not in that way. But yeah, I forget where I was going with this, but I don't know. I didn't know how to feel about that scene with the parents. Like I wanted a little bit more context and depth, like to understand why Justin was the way he was. And I don't know. It didn't give me enough it didn't give me enough
Hmm.
storytelling.
Hmm.
It didn't give me enough like background on these characters, because you think like, okay, cool, she's going to dinner with his parents, like we're gonna learn about his background a little bit, we're gonna kind of figure out these characters a little more, and we really didn't. Like we really we
You
didn't.
were left at the same place that you were left with after that initial phone call, right? Like you knew that they were like, "Hey, she's
Yeah.
not the one for you. Move on." And that's you got that from the phone call in the beginning. Now, the dinner scene, I don't really want to say should have been removed because I really like the cake, and I also like the fact that the parents were like not that upset that she burped out a fly.
Yeah. They were actually pretty cool until she started like acting crazy and being all possessed and stuff.
Until she threw the whatever the plate at the door, right? And that's when they're like, "Oh no, okay, that's too much."
Yeah, like they were the opposite of what you would expect for people who were as rich as they were.
Yeah, they were doing that like politeness thing. Um, Yeah, so I don't know. The pacing, I feel like it could have been better. It absolutely could have been better, but also I don't know what they would have replaced any of these cut scenes with. I'm just worried they would have replaced them with like more useless things. That seance scene needed to be cut down. I don't care about the other ghosts in the house. Like, who gives a shit about other ghosts in the house? You make it look like you're at a theme park ride in Disneyland.
Yeah.
Um, and it's stuff like that that really hurt the movie for me. Sound music. I figure like we should. I want to just discuss the sound real quick. Uh, I think it was
Okay,
very
and
competent. Oh, go on.
before you say that, I just want to
Hmm.
say from the interviews I was watching, apparently Sam Raimi purposely wanted to ensure that younger teenagers could go see this movie. So I don't know if that played a role. So he was trying to make it more accessible to younger audiences and older audiences. Like he wanted to make it scary, but not in the way that's gonna like sway younger audiences from going to see it. So he very much meant to make it like a PG-13 movie. So I don't know if that could be reason behind maybe a little bit more amateur um, feeling in that seance scene. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing to note.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's hard for me to say like that. That would make some sort of sense, but it's just like the kid gloves got placed too strongly on. Like the guy's dancing above the fire. The goat turns into a bad CGI goat that
Yeah.
taunts. Just the whole thing felt so off, especially when you're talking about bringing back the character that you showed in the first scene. The first scene, which I assume was either the tone setter or was to show that like this character is someone who's dealt with it before, and then the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
just comes off again. It felt like the Haunted Mansion at Disney, not even the movie, the Haunted
It
Mansion, like
did.
the Haunted Mansion at Disney. Like it's built
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
like a theme park ride. I don't know. Very disappointed with the tone of that scene. Um, So okay, sound music. I thought it didn't have a huge impact on me. Where I would say that the huge impact was made was that beginning scene with Mrs. Ghanoush and how disgusting she sounded. The tapping of the fingers on her desk, the coughing made it
Oh,
sound like
right.
how nasty, like how sick she was. And then like the teeth sucking and when she was taking the teeth in and out, the way it was sucking into her mouth, that was pretty gnarly. So the sound for me was just fine. Not overly over the top great. Nothing stood out to me except for that particular scene. The rest of it was like this is okay. And Sam Raimi's music, it's not going to be bad, but it was very standard, like um, blockbuster horror movie affair. And this is pre James Wan era, so it wasn't just loud noises and like harsh instrumentals. This was just orchestral scores.
Yeah. Yeah. It nothing really stood out to me. All I wrote in my notes was macaroni and cheese swishing. And I can't remember exactly what that went to. Probably somebody's eyes falling out or somebody getting, I don't know, stabbed. I don't know. But
Mac and cheese
that's
fishing.
what I noted for sound,
I
which
love
I
that.
guess is always a good thing when
Yeah.
it's kind of like that nasty like sound.
Hmm. Hmm. So, I'm going to give you this opportunity. Is there anything else you want to specifically bring up in this film?
Let me see. I don't know. It was just a strange, wild ride. Everything from the possessed button that you give to people to Lamia, bad CGI, inconsistent aesthetics, and yeah, it was definitely something.
Mm-hmm.
It was a wild ride.
Um, just a few of my notes that I just want to pop off here for no other reason but then to pop them off. Um, Christine's house reminds me of a red jumpsuit apparatus music video. It had that vibe
Mm,
to it, so very 2009. Justin Long was driving a Prius in
Richie.
2009. Yeah, that's when Priuses were new. You know, like everyone's like, "Oh my god, a hybrid vehicle? You never buy gas." And the parents' cat's name was Hecuba, and Hecuba is she was the queen of Troy, and she symbolizes endurance and strength in the face of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know. It's close. It's an interesting idea, but I didn't think they really hit it. Yeah. So that's what I got. You ready to do this rating of this thing?
Yeah, I didn't do. I rated in each category,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I didn't do like the overall score. So maybe
Oh, I'll pop that open as you go.
you could help me with that.
Yep.
So for the story, I gave it a 1
Okay.
because it was just so all over the place. I feel like they could have done better with keeping a little bit more cohesive and picking one or two aspects to go strong with. But instead, it was just like too many different things happening at once. And yeah, I feel like they could have had just a more uh, streamlined storyline instead of all these different things happening. Um, I gave the acting a 1 because they're just, I mean, there were a few good acting scenes, but it was just nothing super compelling to me or believable, really. Lamia or the Hungarian gypsy, Mrs. Ghanoush, she was the most compelling actor to me. And I gave cinema and creativity, actually, I gave it a 5, which I is obviously the highest number we can go, but it was there. Like the guy had creativity. He knew like he took risks, right? Like you said, good decision maker. He knew what he wanted to do. That's clear. And he just wanted to do some weird stuff. So I kind of appreciate that with how far he went with his creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And editing, uh I put a 3 here. So it's editing slash
Pacing.
pacing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go back. I'll give that a 2
All right.
because it's yeah. I didn't think it was that great. And then the sound I gave a 2 because I have macaroni and cheese swishing in my head.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings you up to a 4.5 if you want to go with that.
All right, that sounds about right. Honestly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what do you
Um.
got?
So for this, I've got story at A2. I am giving it that extra point just for making the ending a dark ending, a negative ending. Um, I give points for that because not almost no movies are willing to do that. The acting was a 2. I think there were moments where it was pretty good, but overall, not great. Cinematography, creativity, a 3. I do agree with the strong choices, but I hated the CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, if the CGI was better, this whole movie might be different. Editing, pacing is a 3. It could have been better, but it wasn't like the worst. And then sound and music, a 3. So that brings me up to a 5 out of 10. So
Okay.
For me, it's not a movie that I would necessarily recommend to people. I'm not going to say it's the worst thing ever, but if someone's like, "Hey, should I watch Drag Me to Hell?" I think I'd give them other options instead. Um, Especially like other Sam Raimi options. The people who are involved in this movie have done better, so it's not any like personal thing. It's just I didn't agree with the way that this movie was made, or like the decisions that were made during this movie.
Yeah, and with a cover like that, you really think you're going to get into something that's a little bit scarier. Like I was ready to a little scared, but I wasn't scared the entire time. So that was
Yeah,
a
and
disappointment.
I would suggest if you're going into this, like if you just listen to this and you haven't watched the movie yet, then I'm sorry, that was a mistake. But if you only hear this part and you haven't watched the movie yet, go ahead and just watch the PG-13 version. I don't think that the unrated version added anything significant. I can't imagine what it added. Maybe during that blood scene with the laugh, but it wasn't worth it. Like just watch the PG-13 version the way it was released theatrically.
Hmm.
I don't think that it changes my mind much one way or the other from what you've heard here. Um, Yeah, cool. So that was Drag Me to Hell from 2009. Now, Janice, I want to say thank you for being here for these last 2 weeks.
Hmm.
We may have Janice back at some point in the future. She loves watching these movies with me, so she's very graciously agreed to do these 2 podcasts. But I'm going to give her a break now. This next podcast we have coming up will be with my good pal Willie J. We run the Double Doinkers Fantasy Football Podcast, which is very new. And he's going to do a movie with me. So since he is the guest, I have allowed him to choose the film. And so we are watching the 1999 Mike Judge film, Office Space. I'm sure you've heard of this film. It is a very famous film by a very famous guy. And that's what we'll be talking about. So Willie's going to be with me on this next one. For everything I'm hearing, school's going very well for Andrew. After Office Space, he should be back. So we'll see him not this following podcast, but what do you call it? The over podcast?
Yes. Over Morrow, over
Yes,
podcast.
yes, not
So,
tomorrow.
yeah,
Over tomorrow.
for Office Space, I'm excited because I actually don't think I've ever seen that movie all the way through. So, I'm obviously not going to be on the podcast for it, but it'll be an opportunity for me to watch it with you, at least.
And I'm always excited for anything Mike Judge does because I just think he's a genius.
Oh, he
Um,
did King of the Hill, right?
he did King of the Hill. Yep, he did Idiocracy. He did Silicon Valley. He's done a lot of things.
Oh,
So
okay. I like King of the Hill, so
yes, I'm always
yeah.
excited to. I have full disclosure. I have seen Office Space before. It's been a while, and I've never looked at it in this lens. Whenever you look at it, where you're taking notes and you're writing things down, it's always more fun. I should say that it's anyway. We'll go on. So check us out. Next podcast will be Office Space. I appreciate anyone who's listened to this. And I don't want your cat, you dirty pork queen.
Yes, you do.
Stay tuned.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Additional Crew Film Review. If you like this content, please check out our other episodes, and otherwise, please subscribe, give us a good rating. All these things help us to be seen a little bit more. We do have a letterboxed. Name is Additional Crew Film Review.